Principle number 10 of the guiding principles reads as follows: collection, maintenance, and analysis of data about LGBTI people should be done in accordance with the highest standards of ethics. Now, we saw in principle number 8 the case being made for collecting data, and in principle number 9, the concept of do no harm. So principle number 10 kind of combines those two and recognizes that this data collection itself has risks of doing harm. A recent report by the independent expert on violence and discrimination against or on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity has detailed a number of risks associated with gathering data about LGBTI populations. This kind of data collection involves asking people to identify their own sexuality and gender in a way that's going to be recorded. And these are highly stigmatized characteristics. So there is concern that this information stay private, confidential, that it be secure, that it be not subject to data breaches, that it be not subject to other hostile components of a government getting hold of it. So we have to be very careful about this kind of data. Thankfully, this issue is not unique to LGBTI populations, so there are plenty of standards out there and a number of ethical and legal standards to respond to this kind of risk. Collecting data on LGBT people is considered research on human subjects. Thus, all the ethical standards dealing with human subject research apply to this. That includes ensuring that individuals consent to having this data be collected, ensuring that the privacy of the individual is maintained and the confidentiality of the data they give is maintained, as long as there's something that can identify the data to correlate to that individual. Also, ensuring the security of the data and maintaining any security procedures that need to be in place. There are also standards of privacy under human rights norms, and the Human Rights Committee looked at a situation of somebody whose information was disclosed to unauthorized personnel and came up with a series of standards that reflect the need for privacy under the international human rights standards. So the data can be used only for lawful purposes. It should be collected only by people who are authorized to do so. The data that was collected illegally should be eliminated. And if there are mistakes or corrections to be made in the data, that the person about whom the data is should be able to go in and seek and get a correction of that data. We also need to make sure that governments have sufficient legal frameworks so that the agencies that hold this data are going to be able to keep it safely and are going to be accountable to maintaining the standards of that. So this not only includes things like a national health survey or census, but it might include something like the local health clinic with data, or maybe even the local housing authority that might ask about family composition, which might include data about sexual orientation, or other kinds of administrative data that's gathered in the day-to-day operations of agencies. The UN Fundamental Principles of Official Statistics set out what are the kind of legal frameworks that are needed to make sure agencies that hold data can keep it safely. It says that agencies need to operate in a transparent manner and tell people what they're doing with the data, be accountable, be accessible, be able to explain in clear language to the average person what's going on with their data, and they need to be subject and protected by legal protections that make the people that hold the data independent from other people in the government that might want to obtain the data. And many international associations and countries have adopted these principles to ensure that the national statistical functions remain ones that can prevent any harm from data collection.